been another couple weeks, and you are itching for some sports news. It's the Average Sports Show with your average guys, Eric and Ty. The show that will keep you in the know about all things sports, what's happening. For those who like sports, want to know a couple of things, but can't necessarily dedicate the time and follow every game out there. It's what you have us, your average guys. Some people have a job, Eric, and they can't just, do what we do.
I think it's okay.
Well, anyway, how you doing, Eric?
Dude, I'm doing awesome today, man. It's been too long.
Yeah, right on.
It's been too long. I'm
I know it has. I've been looking forward to this show. Yeah.
We got so much stuff to cram into this tiny little episode.
So with that, we're not talking about in this show that unfortunate penalty kick miss by Messi. I feel bad for him. That's all I'm going to say. Moving on. But the world.
Yep.
Wow.
Next topic, man.
Yep.
Let's talk about what we saw last time.
A couple days after the last time we had done a show, I was watching a Nationals game, and I already forgot who they were playing. But that doesn't matter. Ovechkin and crew, they were hanging out, doing the first pitch thing. I've never seen a better group of guys having fun at a baseball game. I don't know if you saw any of this, but they're hanging out in their box seats, rows of Bud Light cans, doing long pours, giving beers to other people. Like it was a mess, but it was awesome.
The Capitals are having themselves one hell of a party, it seems like, and like one hell of a blue collar man's type of party. They are just drinking the Bud Light and like the cheap booze. So congratulations to them on the Stanley Cup victory. And I think one thing to note today, it was officially announced, if you guys don't know already, Barry Trotz, head coach to the Washington Capitals, has officially resigned as of this afternoon.
Hey, you got to sometimes just finish while you're still on top. That's how I'm going to chalk that up. Why not? It's a good career.
There you go, man.
So, take it. Also, a good shout-out to the U.S. Open champion for the second time in a row, Brooks Koepka. Koepka.
I'm going to go with Koepka.
I didn't follow this guy. I don't know him too well, so honestly, when I saw his name come up again this year, like, oh, maybe we should try to learn it. But I don't know. Hey, we're the average guys. Not exactly tip-top. So congrats to Koepka, but I also want to point out Tommy Fleetwood was the only non-American to finish in the top 5, and he played a 7-under round yesterday to finish second. So good for him.
Yeah, he had a great round yesterday. Yeah. They really changed that course and made it super conservative and a birdie fest. And he took advantage, so good for him.
So our main topic of the show for this week, what are we getting into? This is something that you pulled together here, and I quite like this.
Yeah, I was overhearing some other people kind of talk about this, and it's not necessarily on other sports shows, although some other places did kind of touch base on it. But I thought what was really interesting about this is, the whole topic is with Alex Ovechkin winning the championship. He was clearly, in my opinion, the best player without a championship, the current player. So don't give me that Dan Marino crap, all you Miami fans out there, about not winning one. Yeah. Best current player that didn't have a championship was Alexander Ovechkin, and it wasn't even close. And now that he's done it, that just brought to my attention, who are some of the other guys that don't have a championship that are top of their game? So what were you thinking? Because I definitely got a couple
immediately
myself.
When I saw this come up, my mind went to baseball. And I think there's so much talent out there, and I think we've even talked about this before with just how much players are going to be making. We have some big contracts to expect in the offseason. So first guy to come in mind, you thinking, well, Harper. Like, he's been in the game now for a while. He's drafted, incredibly young. What was he, 17 drafted? And he was actually playing by the time he was 18. And he's been, for the most part, living up to it, right? And the entire team has had enormous expectations. But no, I would have to say, of all the baseball players, Mike Trout, year over year, he's putting up the numbers, always batting above 300. I'm looking at some career stats. He only had twice, 2014 and 2015, where he was sub 300. And right now he is at 328. He is just hitting away, 46 RBIs, as of June 20th. 253 at bats on that with 60 runs scored as well, 83 hits. The guy is he's a machine, and he's a defensive monster too. He's out and just shagging balls down, doing what he can. 23 home runs as well so far. Mike Trout is my guy. That's someone who's very well deserving of a championship.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty good call. The only issue is the Angels have been god-awful since he's pretty much been there. They've had like one or two playoff appearances.
Yeah.
And so
they need the rally monkey back.
Yeah, I think Bryce Harper deserves to be on that list, but he's not going to be mine. Just a side note, one baseball player for me that's an honorable mention, Ichiro.
Okay.
Think about how long he's been playing baseball and just what he is to American baseball. He's not the biggest name, but he's definitely an honorable mention for me.
One of the biggest names internationally, for sure. And did he have that weird signing that he's wearing a uniform right now, and then he's going to the front office? Remember the details of that?
I don't know the details of that. I'm going to have to look it up.
He might actually fit the bill for you that he's still technically an active player for this season.
Yeah. The one that I got is one of my favorite players, someone that decided not to leave in some of the recent off seasons, Fitzy out in Arizona. You know, normally when you think of football players that haven't won championships, you go to those quarterbacks. Who are the quarterbacks that haven't won? You know, I mean, you would he's retired now, but you put people like Tony Romo on that list. You'd put Phillip Rivers on that list. You know, I'm going to put Larry Fitzgerald on there, who's a big name and has really decided to stay his whole career in Arizona, and it's definitely on the downswing with that team not going to be overly competitive, I don't feel. So
yeah, I like it. I will honestly say that I think their window has shut, not to just borrow a cliche there, but I think they're going to have a really tough time putting him in a opportunity to win in the postseason, but I think it's a good pick. You know, you always go after that loyalty. You like that quality in guys who aren't just bouncing around looking for that championship.
Yeah. And then there is one basketball player I want to shout out, just another, I guess, honorable mention for basketball, Mr. Chris Paul.
I like that one.
You know, playing in Houston.
I was devastated. I was hurt for Houston not making it.
Yeah, I was too. I mean, I think I had originally called us that. I mean, I'm going to pick the Warriors until they prove me they can't win. But I was definitely cheering for Houston, and they just, they couldn't do it. But Chris Paul would be an honorable mention for me for sure.
Some good picks by who you got. That's a little above average for you, Eric. Well done. You did your homework.
Maybe I need to bring it back down.
That's actually for our topic. We are going to get into our who you got for the show. Yeah, you can bring it down. I just can't even read what I have in front of me. I like this as well. You put this in the mix for this episode. Is the best or most electric rivalry in sports. So of all sports of teams playing each other, I'd like to say that there would be a couple of teams overseas in a Euro League for soccer or football, whatever you prefer to call it. I just don't know enough myself to pick a couple teams. So I have 3 of them I'm going to throw out there. And a lot of people, just maybe because it's still fresh, seeing the Penguins and the Caps actually play another series and it go the other way to the Caps, that was exciting. I don't have to care too much for either of those franchises to really enjoy watching those two teams play each other. That was very enjoyable, especially for this season, seeing a fresh team come out on top at the end. But they usually take it to a game 6 or 7, and it's, again, highly entertaining. This year also, Yankees-Red Sox. They are like back into classic. We are really good teams. We're going to dominate this division, and we're only going to really hurt on each other where no one else can necessarily give us too much gripe. So it's kind of fun to watch those two teams do it again. Very reminiscent of late 90s and early 2000s when they were both having some success. But you know what? A new one. Something a little fresh that people might want to put the TV on every once in a while for. I just watched a series against the Angels, and I know you said even not just a minute ago that they aren't that good, but they were.
I guess they're above 500, but
yeah, exactly, they are still above 500. So for them, they're actually having a successful year, right? For all intents and purposes, they're doing all right. Pujols is still getting knocks every once in a while. He broke 3,000, so they have this club with a lot of veteran experience as well as some good young talent, and of course Trout in the mix being the best player in baseball. When they played the Mariners, look out, both those teams, because the M's are also coming together this year like no one really expected. It's been really fun to watch those two teams play. I throw that out there as one of my new, fresh, most electric series going on. Rivalries.
I'll definitely tune in for that, and then I'm definitely interested to see how that works out. The AL West has really kind of turned into something that I'm interested in, with obviously Houston and the Mariners being on a surge this year, so I'm interested in that. I got a couple here, and then I have my big one, and my big one is very specific to a time period, and this is the whole reason that I put this topic on there. So,
all right,
there's a couple from some other sports, and I think very recently, I think quite honestly, you could pick any NFC East team against the Cowboys, and you're going to be just fine for a rivalry.
Okay.
But in particular, I think the Cowboys-Eagles rivalry has really overtaken the hatred that they have for the Redskins from like the early 90s.
Right.
Because, man, do they hate the Philadelphia Eagles more than anything in the world. And so that's always a fun rivalry to watch.
When I see those two teams are matched up on a Sunday night game, when I see that happening, I am going to watch it. You're absolutely right. And I don't have that much fandom toward those two franchises. I care less if they're successful or fail. I really would be watching it more for fantasy stats, but I could watch that game also just with no skin in the game either.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this interesting. Another big one is the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. That's been a lot more competitive the last 5 years, even though Ohio State has beaten Jim Harbaugh into the ground. He hasn't won a game yet. But they've been very competitive games. There have been some controversial calls at the end, and so I think that it has really kind of brought that series back to the fold. There's one that I think you're obviously going to really, really like here, and that's the Blues and the Hawks. That is one hell of a rivalry, man. Now it's eased up recently with some of the Bruisers leaving the Blues, with Backus and Bauer leaving. And the Hawks getting a little older, so maybe that can refresh. But, dude, that is still one heck of a rivalry.
No doubt. And especially for the fact that they didn't make the postseason this year, it's probably just not that relevant feeling, even though it was only a year ago, 2 years ago. They played back-to-back in playoffs.
My God, that series 2 years ago when the Blues won and went to the Western Conference Finals, that was one of the best playoff series I have ever seen.
Yeah.
It was insane. One of the best series I've ever seen in my life. It was incredible, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, I'm not going to back you up too much on that collegiate pick, but I do like your hockey one right there. That's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw another hockey one at you.
Okay. Get in there.
Because this is the whole reason I did this, was from 1996 until about 2002, the Avalanche and the Red Wings.
Yeah. All right.
If there was a rivalry in sports that you were watching that was nasty, dirty, and gritty, it was that rivalry, the Avalanche and the Red Wings. It had two goalie fights, which everybody loved. It had many just full on-out brawls with everybody on the ice. And between the two teams, there were, I think, 5 Stanley Cups won in that time frame.
Well, unfortunate thing there is that they're no longer even in the same conference.
No,
so
they're not.
You're not going to see that very much. Overall, I'm with you, Eric. Good picks. Well, it's that time in the episode where we're going to get into our lightning standings. And for this show, we are... I like that, yeah. That's
sound effect,
little
baby.
Thunder, little lightning. I actually have a button for lightning.
You should use it instead of letting me do it.
Yeah, it is on in the background, just ever so.
All right.
Yeah, the rumble is there.
There we go. All right, man. You got the National League. Let's do it.
All right, jumping in. Got to start with the East because there's some shakeup. Last time we were looking at standings, well, except for Miami down there in the basement. But we have Atlanta sitting at the top, looking pretty at 42-29. Washington has quietly made their way into second place, 37-31. Then you got Philly and the Mets just doing their slippy slidey thing on the way down to hang out with Miami. They really like the South Beach. Milwaukee, though, sitting at the top of the Central, 42-29. It's also tied with Atlanta. Good record there. For the Cubs, Cubbies got 40-28 at second, and the Cards are looking at 37-32. Rounding off the West, we have Arizona and the Dodgers also doing a very similar Washington move. They're well above 500.
Really
They've been winning a lot, 37-33 for second place. San Francisco still hanging in there, 4.5 games back right now, along with Colorado, 5 games back. And San Diego, believe it or not, is still in it too, 34-40. Not the best record,